Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Rose Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. It's been a rough couple of weeks for Indiana basketball. They didn't make the NCAA tournament, and a lot of people are upset at Mike Woodson for some of the things that he has said, and the fact that it doesn't look like Indiana has any direction for next season. They haven't brought any portal players yet, but the Hoosiers got some great news today because Malik Reneau, one of their best players from last season, is returning to Indiana for his junior season. I'm going to go over how massive this is for Indiana basketball that Malik Reneau is returning, and whether Mike Woodson can somehow build a roster around Malik Reneau for Indiana to have a shot to be good next season. Now, Malik Reneau was by far one of Indiana's best players last year. The only player that you could argue that was better than Malik Reneau was Khalil Ware, because Khalil Ware was literally the total package. He was a good defender. He could knock down the three. He had so much versatility to his offensive game. And I do believe that he is a guy that will not return to Indiana basketball next season. If you look at Indiana's scholarship chart, he's still listed on it because he has not announced whether he is leaving for the NBA or not. But Khalil Ware is being projected as a first-round pick by most draft experts, so I would expect him to leave. Trey Galloway and Anthony Leal have already both announced that they are returning for their senior seasons. And as you can see, Trey Galloway tweeting on Twitter, not done yet to Malik Reneau. So he is very happy that Malik Reneau is going to be running it back. And the only other players that are still in question for Indiana is Gabe Cupps and Ja'Kai Newton, who I would both assume are coming back. Gabe Cupps played a lot as a freshman. He should return to Indiana and learn behind a more veteran point guard that presumably Mike Woodson would be bringing in. And then Ja'Kai Newton, he is a very talented player, but he suffered an injury in his senior year of high school, and he was not able to play for Indiana this past season because he had complications with knee surgery, but he should be a guy that could factor into the rotation for Indiana next year. But the Hoosiers have 6 open scholarships right now, and they could have 7 if Khalil Ware does end up going off to the NBA. But it's big for Malik Reneau to return because Mike Woodson had literally nothing going for him right now as the Indiana head coach. Most Indiana fans are either frustrated with Mike Woodson or want him fired. I've been talking about the Mike Woodson saga for the last couple of months. I've made several videos on it, but he will be returning to Indiana next year. And he does have an over 60% winning percentage. He's barely over 500 in the Big Ten, so he hasn't done all that well, but he still made 2 NCAA tournaments in his first 2 seasons. And even though he had a step back this year, he's got a lot of people in his corner, whether that's good or bad, in the Indiana administration up there, and they're letting Mike Woodson run it back for one more season. But at least he's not going to have to worry about Malik Reneau, and Reneau's making the right decision to return to college because he wasn't ready for the pros. Even though he started to step out, shoot threes a little bit, his defense is a lot worse than Khalil Ware's, and he still struggles with double teams, something that he's going to have to get better at. He's got to get better at handling the ball. As you can see, his assist rate went up. He averaged almost 3 assists per game this year, whereas last year he only averaged 1 assist per game. His rebounds went up from 4 to 6, and his points went up from 6 to 15 points per game. So he got much better as a player, but he does have a lot to work on. But some Indiana fans thought Malik Reneau would end up transferring to another school, but he is staying committed to the Hoosiers. The only thing I'm worried about with Malik Reneau returning, though, is will Mike Woodson still think that Indiana needs another 7-footer or a 6'11 type of center that can play next to Malik Reneau? That's not what Indiana needs. It's the only thing I'm worried about. Mike Woodson needs to play Malik Reneau at the 5, maybe get a backup center that's better than Peyton Sparks, who is leaving Indiana along with Caleb Banks and CJ Gunn. But Peyton Sparks was not really able to factor into the rotation for Indiana. But Mike Woodson needs to bring in a backup center that can shot block behind Malik Reneau, and he needs to start Malik Reneau at the 5. If he gets another transfer portal center and they have that guy at the 5 and then Malik Reneau at the 4, then this team is going to stink yet again next season because positionally Malik Reneau is better at the 5. Even though he's given up some size and he's not a shot blocker, Malik Reneau definitely needs to play the 5 for Indiana next season. And Mackenzie Mbako is the only other question mark for the Hoosiers. Will he return to Indiana? Forgot to mention Mackenzie Mbako. He is a guy that needs to play at the 4 for Indiana next season. If he decides to transfer or go off to the NBA, which I don't think he's ready for, that would be tough for Indiana. But if he comes back, that would be massive for the Hoosiers, for him to play at the 4, especially since they lost Liam McNeely, who backed out of his commitment. And then if you have Indiana bringing in some guards to play around Trey Galloway, that's what Mike Woodson has to do. If you look at some of the guys that they're looking at in the portal. Kanan Carlisle from Stanford will be a solid guard addition. There's a lot of guys from smaller schools on this list. The guard from Belmont's solid. Another guard from Penn is very solid. But Mike Woodson needs to recruit the transfer portal very hard for guards. And as more and more of these teams are eliminated from the NCAA tournament, that's going to be where Mike Woodson will be able to possibly get some solid guards in the portal. And Indiana, they got a lot of minutes available for guards, and they got good NIL and still a rabid fan base. Even though they're very frustrated with the team, they still support the program to the fullest. So I do think Indiana has a lot to offer a player, but Mike Woodson still has to modernize that offense and make sure that he tells the guys that he is looking for in the portal that we are going to start you, especially if it's a high-level point guard. Bring that guy in. Let him play next to Trey Galloway. Bring in another solid guard as well that can shoot the lights out of the ball, and then bring in a backup center that can play behind Malik Reneau. And if you get Mackenzie Mbako back, maybe you can bring in a power forward that can play behind him that maybe could stretch out and shoot the three. But Indiana needs to play that 4-out, 1-in offense that Mike Woodson said when he got the job. He hasn't been doing it with all the bigs that he's had. Had to do it with Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson because they were both great players. But bringing Khalil Ware in and then having Malik Reneau and Mackenzie Mbako, it just did not work. Mike Woodson has to recruit very solid guards out of the transfer portal. That's the only way Indiana is going to have success next season. And with Malik Reneau returning, that's a great start for the Hoosiers. But Mike Woodson cannot bring in another starting level center that plays next to Reneau, or that would blow this whole thing up. But Mike Woodson, very fortunate Malik Reneau's coming back. He should be a guy that gets even better for Indiana next season. And now they just got to figure out what Khalil Ware and Mackenzie Mbako are going to do, and then recruit the portal hard. And maybe Mike Woodson can have a shot to make Indiana better next season. But recruiting the transfer portal is very tough. But that's why they opted out of the NIT. He's got to get a jump on it now, sign a couple of players that should be able to factor into the rotation next season. That will calm the Indiana fan base down. But Malik Reneau returning at least keeps the Indiana fans off the ledge and hopeful that the Hoosiers might be better next season. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below what you think about Malik Reneau returning to Indiana and whether you are surprised he did return to IU or whether you thought that he would transfer or test the NBA draft waters, and what you think the rest of the Indiana roster is going to do, like Khalil Ware and Mackenzie Mbako, on whether they go pro or return to Indiana, and if you believe Mike Woodson has what it takes to bring in the right portal guards for the transfer portal to make Indiana a good team next season. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.